Sachin, we're holding by the last Perek of Tanya.
Yeah.
However, a while ago, probably around 3 years ago, someone asked me, told me that the second half of Perek Lamed Daled, I don't have a shir on it. And Kuti Amarim. I said, that's impossible. I've been teaching Tanya all along. And so I went on and checked the records and Taka. I don't have a shir on the second half of Perek Lamed Daled. So I did some, forensic investigation. And I found out that the shir on the first half of Perek Lamed Daled, I gave it in the Seres Mitzvah. So then it's easy to figure out what happened. So I then went a few weeks without the shir because it was Sukkot and Kwastera. And when I came back, for some reason, I thought that I already taught it.
It was under the impression.
So yes, so I gave then a whole sikum. I gave a few shirim which are summarizing the first 34 prakim of Tanya, because the first 34 prakim of Tanya is one basic idea, and we moved on. So in my mind, I always said I have to be mashlan because to have the entire Tanya online. And since we're holding by the siyum, and next class and the class afterwards won't be having a siyum on Tanya, so we can't make a siyum if we didn't learn the whole thing. So therefore, today we are going to be learning the second half of Perek Lamed Daled. So for those of you who are watching this video, and you're wondering why in the first half of Perek Lamed Daled, the one who was teaching you had a brown beard, and now the one who's teaching you Perek Lamed Daled, the beard is definitely a much lighter color. So that's the reason why, and that's the reason why we're in a different setting, in a different building. Page 86.
86?
Yeah, so we're going to be doing the second half of Perek Lamed Daled.
You have to give us a recap of the beginning.
Let's give you a recap. I'm supposed to remember what I taught you 6 years ago.
No.
You know it by heart anyway.
I don't know what I ate for supper last night. Well, how could I?
I hear you. So we, and actually I was doing, so we're doing Tanya now 8.5 years. That's almost 8.5 years. Okay. So where are we? So I have to give you a little recap of where we are. Perek Chavav in Tanya. The Alter Rebbe starts a series of prakim, a sequence of prakim, which is 9 prakim long. Perek Chavav through Perek Lamed Daled, chapter 26 through chapter 34, and the topic is Atzvus and Simcha.
What, Lamed Vav?
Lamed Daled. We're doing the end of Lamed Daled, page 86.
86, yeah.
The importance of eliminating negative emotions, the importance of having simcha being infused, we're here in the month of Adar Taka, the importance of living a life which is filled with simcha and positive emotions. Now you realize that Tanya, L'Kutei Amarim, the whole L'Kutei Amarim is based on the pasuk, which means that it's teaching us self-mastery, teaching us how, even though that we have an Nafsha Bahamas, even though we have a Yetzer Hara, and even though it's difficult, nevertheless, we have the ability to be able to serve the Eibishter 24/7. And L'Kutei Amarim is 53 prakim long. Of those 53 prakim, 9 prakim, a full 9 prakim, so I'm not good at math, but we're probably talking around close to 20% of Tanya. Close to 20% of Tanya is telling us how to be b'simcha. How to stay away from atzvus, stay away from negative emotions, all the different emotions that drag us down, that weigh us down, and how to live instead a life which is infused with simcha, which gives you an understanding of just how important simcha is. In order to be able to serve Hashem properly, if you're in a state of atzvus chas v'shalom, or you're not in a state of simcha, that's impossible. So, for a few prakim Chavav, Chav Zayin, and Chav Ches, the Alter Rebbe talks about atzvus, different forms and different types of negative emotions, and how to deal with them. From there, the Alter Rebbe moves on, and prakim Chav Tes and Lamed, the Alter Rebbe talks about another problem, another emotional issue. It's called Timtum Halev. And Timtum Halev is not when you're in a state of negative emotions, but when you're in a state of emotional unresponsiveness, numbness, apathy. How do you deal with that? That's also not good. It's not enough not to be in a state of negative emotions. You also can't be in a state of neutral. And then, from Perek Lamed Aleph and on, the Alter Rebbe starts telling us about how to be b'simcha. How to get to a state of simcha. So in Lamed Aleph, in very short, in Lamed Aleph, the Alter Rebbe says that how does a Yid arrive at a state of simcha, a state of joy. Thank you very much. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nivadvarei.
Amen.
Alter Rebbe says that a yid arrives at a state of joy by identifying with the neshama. And when you identify with your neshama, so then joy is always readily accessible. And why is that? Because, that's actually for those who are learning chitas, it's going to be the chitas for the Shabbos. What is the joy of the neshama? The neshama, what it wants is to connect to Hashem. How do you connect to Hashem? Through doing a mitzvah, through learning Torah, through davening. So the way to arrive at simcha is simply by tapping into that simcha of the neshama, feeling, experiencing every time you do a mitzvah, every time you learn some Torah, every single time you daven, identifying with, experiencing, tapping into that joy of the neshama. That's what Alter Rebbe spoke about in Perek Lamed Aleph. Then Alter Rebbe took a break in Perek Lamed Beis and spoke about Ahavas Yisrael for reasons that we spoke about when we. Why Alter Rebbe took a break for a Perek to talk about Ahavas Yisrael. We spoke about that when we taught that Perek. And then in Perek Lamed Gimel, and we're learning today the end of Perek Lamed Aleph. I'm giving you the Perek Lamed Gimel. The Alter Rebbe introduces a new way to arrive at simcha. Again, Perek Lamed Aleph, the simcha is through mitzvahs, through what we do. In Perek Lamed Daled, Alter Rebbe says, in Perek Lamed Gimel, Alter Rebbe says, there's the simcha that you can have. You don't even have to do a mitzvah to experience the simcha. And that is the simcha that you can experience by internalizing and really feeling the closeness to Hashem. And if you're a person who identifies with your neshama, and if you're a person who really prioritize your relationship with Hashem, and then you take some time and you think about Achdus Hashem. What is Achdus Hashem? Well, we've learned enough Tanya to know. Achdus Hashem doesn't mean that there's one Hashem. I mean, that's the very, very most basic and simple. Achdus Hashem means Eino Movade, there's nothing but Hashem. I look around the world and I see everything. Everything is an extension of Hashem. Everything is an expression of Hashem. Hashem is everything. And therefore, how close am I to Hashem? Whatever I touch, whatever I experience, Hashem is in everything. Hashem is in every event. Hashem is in every phenomenon. Hashem is in every. Right? So, think about how honored you'd be, and the joy you'd experience if there was a great king who said he wants to meet with you. You got to spend some time with him. Now, what if the king says, not only I want to meet with you, I want to come visit you in your house. And then what if the king says, not only do I want to visit you in your house, I want to move in with you. I want to move in with you. Think about the simcha that you would have. And that's literally what we have. This world is a dir. This is Hashem's home. Dir b'tachtonim. Yeah. The closeness to Hashem over here is incredible. So just, even if I'm not doing a mitzvah at this moment, taking time and contemplating and tuning into the reality of Achdus Hashem, of Eid Movade, that itself can bring you to simcha.
Achdut, the shorish is echad.
Right.
The what?
Echad.
Yeah.
Echad.
Yeah.
Unity.
Yeah.
So that was Perek Lamed Gimel. Then we started Perek Lamed Aleph, the Perek that we're going to finish today. Alter Rebbe says there were Taka people who they lived this reality. That was their reality. The reality of Achdus Hashem, the truth of Hashem's unity was their reality. For example, the Avis, Avraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov. That's why they were called the Merkava to Hashem, because they lost their own identity and they were just totally part of this unity of Hashem. They felt it.
Merkava means chariot, right?
Yeah.
Cheskel.
Moshe Rabbeinu. Alter Rebbe says Moshe, Shechina medaberes b'terkeinu shel Moshe, that the Shechina spoke through the throat of Moshe, which means not that Moshe was a Navi, and Hashem told Moshe, hey you, go tell the Yidden this message, be my messenger. No, Shechina medaberes b'terkeinu shel Moshe, which Chazal tell us means something else entirely. That means Hashem spoke through Moshe. So imagine the level of bittul that Moshe Rabbeinu had to have to Hashem, that Hashem spoke through him. These are people who the idea, Hashem shined in them, and therefore the idea of Achdus Hashem, the unity of Hashem, whatever they saw, they experienced Hashem's nearness everywhere. I saw an example to bring this out. Anyone here knows how to read musical notes? No?
So Remy,
My wife.
What?
My wife.
Okay.
All boys do good.
So you look at musical notes, and what do you see? A bunch of black squiggles. Black squiggles, that's all you see. What if you're a great musician and you look at notes? You don't see black squiggles. You actually hear the music. You're reading it in your head. You're actually enjoying the song. We look at the world and we see black squiggles all over the place. Reuven.
Yeah. Let me close it. I forgot to close.
It gives me nachas when you forgot to close it.
You think I think about the cell phone all the time?
But you have to realize that when the phone goes up by someone else, they also didn't realize. So you shouldn't give them a look, you shouldn't scream at them.
They abandoned the phone. That's the problem. He walked away and the phone.
Got it. Okay, so
And nobody's there.
Reuven, I take it back. You're the tzaddik. Only everyone else is the Rishayim.
Tzaddik ador, tzaddik ador.
Anyways,
I don't view him as, I guess
Al Kapanim.
person allowed to complain, you know.
No, you're not allowed to.
What?
You've been caught.
That's also something which we learned recently in Tanya in Perek Lamed. You're not allowed to judge, you're not allowed to condescend. You're not allowed to. Anyways, Al Kapanim, moving on. So we look around the world, we see black squiggles. The Avis, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, they look at the world, they heard the music. They saw the Eibishter and everything. And if you see the Eibishter and everything, then it's incredible Kirbas Elokim, that's incredible closeness to Hashem, that's incredible relationship with Hashem. And that's what they were able to experience. And you can imagine, actually the Gemara says that Shloisha Hitim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Me'ein Elam Haba, the three people as they were living down here in this world, they experienced Elam Haba, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Which is that's why it says by Rabbi Yaakov it says Bakil, Mikoel, Koel, right? That's by Avraham it says Bakoel, and by Yitzchak it says Mikoel, and by Yaakov it says Koel, because they experienced Elam Haba over here in this world. What does that mean? They experienced Elam Haba in this world. That means the joy they felt, the pleasure they felt. And what was the joy? What was the pleasure? Kirbas Elokim, this awesome closeness to Hashem that they were able to feel because they realized the imminence of Hashem. They realized how Hashem is in everything and in everywhere. And that's the greatest simcha that there is. However, I think it's fair to suspect that the people sitting around this table over here, or maybe with the exception of Sason, we don't feel that.
It's black spirit.
It's the squiggles, right?
Squiggles.
We don't feel the Achdus
It's a
Hashem.
rationale, but you don't. How do you develop the emotional attachment?
And we don't feel this Achdus Hashem because our neshamas aren't great enough. And our minds aren't great enough. And in fact, as the Alter Rebbe explains, the beginning of the Perek, which we learned in last lesson before, the first lesson, the Perek Lamed Aleph, the Alter Rebbe says there was one time talking when we all experienced the truth of Hashem, the truth of the Achdus Hashem. Ata harei saladas, you showed us. Ki Hashem hu Elokim ein od milvadeh. We experienced ein od milvadeh. When was that? Matan Torah, right? That was the Ata harei says Matan Torah. And what happened when we experienced that? What happened in Matan Torah? We all died. And Chazal tell us all the Yidden parach nishmasan, our neshamas departed our gufim. Why? Because that gilui, that revelation which the Avis had, and which Moshe Rabbeinu had, the average person can't handle it.
The neshama detached itself from
Yeah,
the Torah.
yeah.
Especially sagashmi.
So as the Alter Rebbe says, so what happened afterwards? The Eibishter realizes, the Yidden aren't a Kalith. They're not a Kalith. They can't handle, they can't tolerate this awesome revelation. So therefore, build for me a Beis HaMikdash. At least in Beis HaMikdash, over there will be the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and that's one place in the world where the truth of the Ein Od Milvadeh will be able to be manifest, will be able to be revealed. Then the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. And what happens now? So now Chazal tell us, Meshachar Beis HaMikdash, Ein Le'el HaKadosh Baruch Hu Be'elamei Ela Daled HaMashalacha. Today, where do we experience this unity with Hashem? When we're learning Torah. So therefore today, if we want to experience the simcha of this closeness to Hashem, we do it through learning Torah. When we learn Torah, that moment. Because Torah is, there's something which we had Tanya many times, that idea that Hu Amada, Hu Yedeya, and Hu Chachmasi Echad, Hashem is one with the Torah. Torah is the complete truth of Hashem, and where the truth of Hashem is the Einod Movade. When we learn Torah, whether we feel it, we don't feel it, the fact is that right now, being absorbed in us, in our mind, we are being filled with Hashem's Chachma, Hashem's Ratzon, Hashem Himself, and that is the greatest joy, the greatest unity, and which leads to the greatest joy possible.
One side question. When we had Baruch and Shmasa, was that with the Luchas Shnias?
No, that was with Matan Torah.
Matan Torah was with Luchas?
Matan Torah was with no Luchas.
No Luchas?
No, Luchas came 40 days later. Yeah. So it's really nice. We get to study Torah and experience this oneness with Hashem, and therefore to be able to take joy in it. But let's be honest, how much Torah does the average person get to learn? So know that for many people, they're mekayim the mitzvah of Hagisa B'Yom V'Layla, they're mekayim the mitzvah of learning Torah day and night, through Perek Echad Shachris and Perek Echad Arvitz. Chazal tell us that if someone doesn't have time because he's very busy and working, and therefore he learns one Perek in the morning and one Perek at night, you need to the mitzvah. So does that mean that the person who is only experiencing that unity with Hashem only once in the morning, once at night? How about the rest of the day? So the first thing that the Alter Rebbe says is, 1 second. Taka, you're only able to learn Torah 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night. But what about the rest of the day? What do you want? You're hoping and waiting for the day when you'll have a little more time, you'll be able to learn Torah a whole day. That's what you want. You're only learning Torah only in the morning and night because you have no breira. So you really want to learn Torah the whole day. If you want to learn the Torah the whole day, then we have the rule of Machshava Tova, Kadosh Baruch Hu Mitzaref L'Maisa. And if Machshava Tova, Kadosh Baruch Hu Mitzaref L'Maisa, if you want to learn Torah the entire day, no, Sason, you're always saying Machshava K'Maisa, right? I was actually preparing for this class. Tonight's guy, I'm like, okay, so I have to go now. I have to listen to the first class that I gave to. And as soon as I mentioned it, Sason, you're Machshava K'Maisa. That was, and I was like, there we go.
I have something else. When you have 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes at night, you're learning what we have to do during the day. When you, in your melacha, you have to osek be'emunah, you have to think how I treat people good. You're still during the day, you're sharing the Torah.
Hold your thoughts. The Alter Rebbe is not going to say what you're saying, but maybe something close to it. So therefore, to a certain extent, to a certain degree, even throughout the day also, we have that unity because Machshava Tova, Kadosh Baruch Hu Mitzaref L'Maisa. But we all understand that it's not the same. That actually learning Torah the whole day, you can't say that it's not the same. So now Alter Rebbe is going to say there's something else. For the rest of the day, when you're not learning Torah, there's also something else. And let's do it inside. We're going to start from the Gam Shar Hayim Kule, page 86, 7 lines from the top.
86?
Page 86.
Like 2 dots?
7 lines from the top.
7 lines from the top. Toiva v'chayme v'gam. See? Count 7 lines.
Yeah. I thought you were stopping at 2 dots.
No. 7 lines from the top.
V'gam.
You're going from the bottom. Why are you going from the bottom?
Oh, for usually you stop at 2 dots. It's like in the winning line. All right, that's another thing.
V'hinei. Sorry. I also what?
You also knew where I was.
I see you're pointing with your finger and you keep on yeah.
He knows it by heart, I'm telling you.
The gaman also shar hayim kulay. How about the rest of the day? Sha'isik b'matzo matam when you're involved in business. So yiyah machem l'shifta yizbarach. That also you can be a mishkan. You can be like the Beis Hamikdash. Just like we said before, the Kodesh HaKadoshim was the place where Hashem resided. Not only when you're learning Torah, the rest of the day also you can also be a machem l'shifta. You can be the place where the Eibishter, where there's Ashras, Hashchina. And how is that? Bin nesina tzedakah, by giving tzedakah. Sheyiten miyigiyah, when you give tzedakah from the work that you do. The obvious question is, why tzedakah? There are a lot of mitzvahs I can do. What's up? Why is he mentioning tzedakah? Earlier in the Perek, the Alter Rebbe said that the connection to Hashem is to learning Torah. Now he's saying tzedakah. Are those the only two mitzvahs? The answer is yes.
Tzedakah only money? Tzedakah could be other things too, correct?
Chesed could be.
No, but it's seen as tzedakah by giving tzedakah, she'itin migay, which you give from what you work, from that which you earned.
Yeah.
What's so special about tzedakah? Shehi midei so shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedakah is one of the midas of Hashem. When you do tzedakah, what is that? Mahu rachum v'chulu. Chazal tell us, right? The Chazal tell us, we're supposed to connect to Hashem. How do you connect to Hashem? By emulating Hashem. Mahu rachum v'chulu, just like Hashem is merciful, we're supposed to be merciful. Mahu chanun, right? As it says in the Tikkunei Zohar, Chesed roi yemina. Chesed is Hashem's right arm. So we can do mitzvahs, but when I do a mitzvah, I'm doing what Hashem told me to do. Mitzvahs themselves aren't the midos of Hashem. But when I'm giving tzedakah, so because Chesed roi yemina, Chesed is Hashem's right arm, when I'm giving tzedakah, you know who's Hashem's right arm? I am Hashem's right arm. I am right now channeling, I'm a conduit. I am channeling Hashem's chesed. So that is the ultimate hashras hashchina, the shchina, me being a mishkan, a machon l'shiftei, me being able to be
A conduit.
a conduit, right, for Hashem, that's dafke through giving tzedakah. So you're going to say, 1 second. That's good. So when I give tzedakah, I'm a machon l'shiftei, right? So I am at this point, I am right now, I'm being like a merkava to Hashem, like a chariot for Hashem. But how much tzedakah do I give? So let's say I give 10%. Let's say I'm a Baal Chesed, I go lefnim Mishur Sadin, and I give 20%. So 20% means that 20% of my day, right now I'm being a machon l'shiftei, because you could say the argument is that if I'm working in order to be able to give tzedakah, so it's not only when I'm giving tzedakah, it's also that when I'm working for the purpose of giving tzedakah, because that's also an act of chesed. If my work is in order to give tzedakah, so then that work, when I'm working, I'm also being a machon l'shiftei, I'm being a mishkan for Hashem. But that's only 20% of my work.
Why 20%?
Because I'm giving 20% to tzedakah, so 20% of my work right now is for the purpose of tzedakah. So 20% of the time I'm being a machon l'shiftei yisbarach. The Alter Rebbe says no. Even though you're only giving a chomish a fifth, 20%. The chomish elevates along with it all the other, in other words, the other four hands to Hashem. That everything should be a mishkan for Hashem. What is this Arba Yadis? Rings a bell? What is this? Why is it called Arba Yadis? Where's this from? Rings a bell to anyone?
Arba Yadot? The Mishkan, the Yadot. Huh?
So it's the end of Parashas Vayigash. So that's when Yosef gives grain to all of the Mitzrayim, and he tells them, "V'hoya." If I recall correctly, the last one, "V'hoya bat voice," and it'll come when it's time for you to gather your grain. So Arba Hayada is Yia Lachem. So 4 hands will be for you. V'achamishis, the 5th one, the party. In other words, 4 portions for you, the 5th the party. So you get 80%, and the party gets the 20%.
He started taxes.
So in Kabbalah it says, explains, we know that everything in Torah, nothing about, why is the Torah B'chal telling us the story? Everything has a deeper implications. Parei, Alter Rebbe explains in Kutei Torah, the word parei means revelation. How do we know that? It's actually in this week's parsha. We have a word in this parsha that's related to the word parei. Ki paruahu, right? Ki paroi aron l'shimtza b'kameim.
But para was not a Hebrew word. I'm
not sure where.
Para was not a Hebrew word.
Okay. Other Yadinish, yeah.
So how could it be related to Tharua?
Because everything is directed by the Eibishter. Everything is that way, and whether or not it's,
you know what I'm saying,
and whether or not it's that way, so you have it's in the Torah, and we have that all the time. Achashverosh is a Hebrew name, Haman's Hebrew name, but Chazal Achashverosh is Achretz V'Neish Shalei, right? That's what it says in the Gemara. Haman is Mina Torah Minayin Hamina Eitz Hazeh, right? A word in the Torah, we don't play around with it like that.
אחשוורוש זה Hebrew name. אחש בראשו. You had the headache all the time.
But Pashtas Achashverosh was a Persian name. Why would a Persian king have a Hebrew name?
If I told you that Farina is in the Torah,
Okay, so I would tell you out of nowhere.
Farina Baharat.
Farinu.
Farina.
Ah, okay, but you didn't say Farinu, you said Farina.
Yeah, but Farina is.
Okay. So this.
Remember that.
So
one.
the word.
That's a new one now.
Okay.
Remember. Farina Baharat.
So the word Pari means revelation.
He liked that.
So Chassidus explains Arba Yodois Yelachem, that when you go to work, the 4 hands is for you. In other words, the 80% you keep. The Chamishis Lepare, the Chamishis, that 5th they give to tzedakah causes the Gili Elokus in your life. But the point is that the Chamishis Lepare, when you that Gili Elokus, the revelation of Hashem, is not only in the 20%, but as Alter Rebbe says over here, Maili Imei Kol Ha'arba Yadus L'Hashem. It elevates the whole everything that you've done. Liyes Machin L'Shifta Yisbarach. To put it in different words, and this is actually something which we learned in the Geras HaKodesh. There's 2 ways to look at tzedakah. One way to look at tzedakah, two ways to look at work. One way is I go to work to make money. So I make money, why? To support myself, to support my family, and to have whatever I need. Don't say yes so quick. This is the wrong way to look at work. And then, and then the Torah tells me also, oh, by the way, that some of the money that you made for yourself, you have to give it to tzedakah. It's not why I'm working. I'm not working in order to give tzedakah. I'm working in order to be able to, in order to make money. Elamah, there's a mitzvah that I have to give tzedakah. The Rebbe says, no. That's the way goyim work. A yid, when he goes to work, why is he going to work? To be able to give tzedakah. That's why you go to work.
But maybe the tzedakah is you're doing it because tzedakah tatzil mimavet. So you want to save yourself from problem. So you give tzedakah.
I'm not sure how that's relevant. The point is, what?
Oh, it's true. We wouldn't be limited in the amount of stuff that we could give.
We're not.
We are. 10% or 20% if you're,
We're never very particular about that.
if you want to be,
You look in Igeras HaKodesh, Siman Tes, page 226. The last line on the page. The Hainu Kol Mili da Alma Viski Parnasa Bayidin. Everything involved this world and the whole Parnasa. Lahiyya Ke'elo da Avdin Legermayu. You shouldn't be like those who do it for yourselves. They go to work for themselves. V'layiyya Beis Yisrael Kachol Hagoyim. Yidin Chas v'Shalom shouldn't be like all the Goyim. The Zonin U'Mefarnesin U'Meikinin L'Neshayu U'V'nayu Ma'ava. That what they go to work in order to be able to give Parnasa to their wives and the children because they love them. No, it's not a Yid.
boy, that's a mitzvah too.
Kimi Ka'amcha Yisrael Gayecha. I'm sure when we learned this, you protested then also.
But that's a mitzvah too, isn't it? Isn't that a mitzvah to be mefarnes yourself?
Yes. The Alter Rebbe continues later. He says, if you look all the way down, where he says, Ella Rakshi Ishte Evanam Shladim Keben L'Chel Al Pi HaTorah. You go to work to give tzedakah. Elamah, the first tzedakah goes to your wife and children. Al Pi HaTorah, you have to give it to your wife and children first. But it's not about that. It's about why do you go to work? He says, Kimi Ka'amcha Yisrael Ge'echa Baratz Ksiv. Kimi Ka'amcha Yisrael, who like Yidin Goyecha Baratz. What does it mean Goyecha Baratz? The Hainu. Shagab Binyan Yaretz. Even when they're Baratz, they're Echad. Lo Yifridu Me'echad Ha'emes. They never forget about the Echad. Even when they're involved in work. Chas v'shalom l'hoid edu sheker chas v'shalom b'krishma erev u'beiker chas v'shalom that a yid should say false testimony in krishma morning and night be'inayim seguris when you close your eyes and you say Hashem echad b'dal d'ruches b'shamayim mal baris b'tachas everything is Hashem, 4 directions, the heavens, the earth. When the blind people open their eyes they blink and it's gone. They forgot Hashem Echad. How do you forget Hashem Echad? And what is proper for us? Whenever we're working, it's never for ourselves. Why are we working? In order to be able to give life to other neshamas. Ulamalis machshireim bechesed chinam, to be able to do chesed. Shebezeh anu medamin hatzur liyetzer. This way we are similar to Hashem. This is exactly what we said earlier. Mahu chanun afata chanun. Asher chesed keil kol hayom. But just like Hashem does chesed, you know why I go to work? Because I need to do chesed. I want to be like the Eibishter.
But you needed to do other mitzvahs as well. You need it for Shabbos. You need to be able to put food on the table for Shabbos. You need to buy a lulav and esrog. You need to buy matzah for Pesach.
That is true, but the Alter Rebbe is saying over here, the primary reason a Yid goes to work is to make money, to be able to do chesed. There was, I just saw a video literally in the last day or two. Someone goes by the Rebbe, a wealthy person, and he tells the Rebbe, the world economy is tanking. This must have been around 1990, I don't know, was that time when the world went to Reich?
87 was the...
No, but this was later, but this video is from later than that. Yeah, so maybe the world economy isn't great, and I want to pull out, I want to pull out my businesses. I'm scared of losing money. And the Rebbe tells him, understand, if you make less money, you're going to give less tzedakah. You have to make more money. And you give more tzedakah. So Hashem wants you to make more money. So keep on investing. The Rebbe tells him. What's the Rebbe telling him? You want to know whether you should do business or not? Of course you have to do business. Why? Because you need to give tzedakah. So what's your motivation? To wake up in the morning and go to the office? You need to give tzedakah. When a person has that attitude, then their entire day, they're machal l'shifteh, because I'm going to work. Why am I going to work? Because I need to do chesed. Because I'm being like the Eibishter. I need to give tzedakah. Not only the 20% they give, whether it's 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, whatever you give. It's not only that. Every cent you make, because the whole purpose of your work is in order to be able to do chesed and be able to give tzedakah.
Chesed is not only tzedakah. It's doing other things as well for other people.
Right. But over here, if we were talking here about elevating the entire day, even when we're working, how do you elevate your work? Through the tzedakah that you get from the work. And now the Alter Rebbe is going to,
You look for ways to make the work that you're doing benefit other people. And that's a chesed also.
That's also true.
You have someone to find the job. It's a big chesed.
Yes.
More than tzedakah.
Yeah, but that's not you using your job for that. Unless you happen to be a headhunter or like a...
form of
Yeah.
But tzedakah also be mefanish your family. That's also a part of tzedakah.
For sure.
That's what I said.
First thing is for your family.
Yeah, but realizing that everything I'm doing, the reason I go to work is because the Eibishter does chesed. I want to connect, I want to be the chesed Reyamina. I want to be Hashem's right arm. I need to go to work because I will have money. Why do I need money? Because I want to do chesed. Who am I doing chesed with? So the Torah gives priorities. The first priority is family. Then others, but it's all about chesed.
Olam chesed yibaneh.
Kinei the Maimer Razal, as is known, what Chazal tell us, Mitzvah Tzedakah Shkula Kinei Kol Karbanos. That's the Gemara said, Masech Seita. The Mitzvah Tzedakah is equivalent of other Karbanos. So therefore, if we look by the Karbanos, we'll see that by Karbanos there's a similar idea, which is by Karbanos, Heikol HaChay Elo Lashem Aidei Behema Achas. As they state in Kabbalah, it says that when a person, in Karbanos, there was Doimim Tzemeach Chayin Medaber. The Doimim, what was the Doimim in Karbanos? Was the salt. I'll call karban chatakriv melech. Every carbon says salt, and salt is daimim, the inanimate. And then there was
It's mineral.
what? Mineral, which is daimim. And then there's tzemeach. What's it tzemeach? Was the mincha. The saran cellulose, the flour that was brought together with every carbon. And then the chai is obvious. The chai is the behemoth that's brought. And then there's the medaber, is the person who's bringing the behemoth, who's also involved in this aveda. So the Kabbalah says, the Arizal says, that when you bring one behemoth, you bring one ox onto carbon, so kol hachai elu l'Hashem adibim achas. That causes an aliyah, some sort of zichuch, a refinement, and some sort of elevation in all the animals, all the chai. When you bring one isarin, a flour mixed with shemen is also a tzemeach, so through that you elevate all the tzemeach, every tree and every blade of grass in the entire world. Chulu, etc. L'chayr, as Bimeram is alluding to, that through the salt you elevate all the daimim. So what do we see over here? We see this concept that a small little portion of something can elevate everything else. The same thing by tzedakah. The 20% that you give tzedakah, it doesn't just elevate that 20%, it elevates 100% of the money and the 100% of the time that you invested in work in order to make that money. So therefore, the entire day you're also somewhat a macham l'shifta yizbarach. Now, it's not in the same level as learning Torah, obviously. That's why the first thing the Alter Rebbe says is the greatest simcha and the greatest closeness to Hashem is to learning Torah. But also, and then he continues. So this, if you realize there's 3 levels. First he says it's learning Torah. Then he says, how about the rest of the day? So he says, well, machshava tevek HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzaref l'maaseh. You want to learn Torah the rest of the day. So if you want to learn Torah the rest of the day, that's also yichud. Then he says something else, which is giving tzedakah. We're going down, right? It's not, but through giving tzedakah also, you're able to be a macham l'shifta yisbarach the entire day. And then the Alter Rebbe says, besides for this, hari b'shas ateiru tefillah. In other words, so 20% goes to tzedakah, and the other 80%. Besides for the fact that the 20% you give tzedakah also has a positive effect on the 80%. Besides for that. So, hari b'shas ha'Torah u'tefillah, when you're learning Torah, when you're davening, Hashem, so you're elevating to Hashem, kol ma she'achal v'shasa v'nana, everything that you ate and you drank, and anything that you took pleasure, ma'arba ha'yadais, l'biriyas gufe, whatever was necessary in order, for purposes they ate for healthy reasons, as will be explained later. So, besides for the fact that the 20%, again, affects an elevation of the 80%, but there's something else. So the 80% of money that you didn't give to tzedakah, what do you do with that? You buy with yourself food. What do you do with the food? You eat. And
Why do you eat?
And why do you eat?
To make chesed.
To be able to daven and be able to learn, right? So, and when you daven and you learn, you're elevating also the 80%. So therefore, that also 100%. Further elevates that time.
Elevating what you eat also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any creepers that are in the...
Yeah. Okay, with this, we have concluded the topic of Simcha, which we started in Perek. We started in Perek Lamed Aleph, and then Lamed Gimel, Lamed Aleph. We concluded the topic of Simcha. How do we arrive at Simcha? Taking the Simcha and the joy of the Neshama, appreciating our mitzvah, appreciating the closeness to Hashem. But there's a little problem. What's the problem? That in Perek Chavtes and Lamed, the Alter Rebbe over there, which is in other words, right now Lamed Aleph, Perek Chavtes and Lamed, the Alter Rebbe over there speaks about, as I mentioned at the beginning of the class, a spiritual malady, an illness known as Timtum Halev. Timtum Halev is when you're feeling emotionally unresponsive. You cannot generate excitement and happiness and love and all the necessary feelings that you need in order to be able to serve the Eibishter. So there the Alter Rebbe says, he brings down from the Zohar says that a piece of wood, if it's not catching on fire, let's say you're trying to make a campfire, and the wood is not catching on fire, so what do you do? Reuven, what do you do with the piece of wood?
You put leaves on it.
You put leaves on it.
And they burn. And that will eventually...
So the Zohar says, you take an axe and you splinter it. Wood splinters, they go up in fire very easily.
Yep.
Eventually. Today we use lighter fluid.
Accelerant.
But back in the good old days, before lighter fluid was invented, before the wheel was invented, when you were a young kid, Reuven, so you didn't have that option, right? So you had to take the axe and you had to punch it. Haken the holz, right? So it says in the Zohar, the same thing is also gufa de lesaluk be the nahira de nishmasam bevachanai. If you have a body, the body is like a log, and if the fire of the neshama, the passion of the neshama is not catching on the body, what do you have to do? You have to crush the body. What does it mean to crush the body? So Alter Rebbe spent 2 prakim, Perek Chavtes and Perek Lamed. It means you have to crush the ego. Because if you're not getting excited about Yiddishkeit, Torah, mitzvahs, if you're not feeling the fire of the neshama, you know why you're not feeling the fire of the neshama?
Your ego is not.
Because you're a grub jung. What?
You're not doing it right.
You know what a grub jung is? You don't know what a grub jung is.
So.
What language?
Yiddish.
You're a Yiddishist. Come on, you're supposed to know this stuff.
It's getting me now. Wait. I owe you one.
No, you don't. I owe you one more.
In Hebrew, they say, Zakiyata Chamor.
Chamor Gadol.
Chamor Gadol, right, exactly. B'stachamor. And that's why you're so full of yourself, you're so egotistical, and you're so self-centered, right? That, of course, the fire of the neshama is not
working.
to put it in different words, you're too excited about yourself to be excited about the Eibishter. You're too obsessed with yourself to be obsessed with the Eibishter. You're a thick log, and the fire of the neshama is not catching on. What do you got to do? Got to crush yourself. Got to crush the ego. Perek Chavtes, Perek Lamed are the two toughest prakim in Tanya. Not the toughest prakim to understand, but those are the Musar prakim in Tanya. In fact, the Michtav Melio, and he writes what? Rav Dessler. So he writes that his whole shitta in Musar is based on prakim Chavtes and Lamed in Tanya.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, Musa Alter Rebbe is harsh.
Was he a Lubavitcher?
No.
No. He wrote letters to the Babich, no?
Almost.
What's considered almost?
He learned Chassidus with someone whose name was Benjaminson. He learned someone, a person in Russia, in England. And he had questions, and that Chassid would write the answer questions to the Rebbe would answer. So it wasn't, I don't think it was a direct correspondence.
Benjaminson is
but there's
a Lubavitch name.
Okay. He learned Chassidus with Lubavitcher. His name was Benjaminson, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he also learned Chassidus with Bishop
I
Matzman.
know Lubavitch.
He very much dabbled in Chassidus. He was very familiar with Chassidus Chabad. The Mitzvah Elio. The bottom line is, he said that his shit and Musar is based on.
Wow, that's something.
It's based on Chavtas Lamed. Tough prakim. And there, the Alter Rebbe tells you, Atachamor, right? That's what Alter Rebbe. That's literally what Alter Rebbe says over there. He says, you think I'm joking? Take a look back in.
Right. It's happened to do right 100%.
What?
Chavtes?
Yeah. Take a look, for example. The first page 72. First words on the page. It's talking about every single one of us. You have to know that you are distant from Hashem, the ultimate distance. And if you skip a few lines, 5 lines, you are lower and more disgusting than treifa animals or shkotzim or ramasim and the cockroaches. Okay?
Wow, he did it.
I'll tell you, if you look at the next page,
Where we up to now?
next page, Lamed Zayin.
Yeah, where?
The last word in the line is nefesh, towards the bottom. The high nul niggers al nefesh b'hamnis to get angry at Yitzhahara. Bekel rash v'regas, with anger and with ashturim machshavti lemerlein, scream at it. Atara v'rasha meshukas, you're evil, you're a rasha, you're disgusting. U'mesuav u'menuvel v'chulu, right? So I'm telling you, this is tough stuff. Perek Chavtas, Perek Lamed. And then the Alter Rebbe switches and says, okay, and now Perek Lamed Aleph and on, I want to teach people Simcha. And you're like, whoa, 1 second. There was a mavachinla. You took on X. You crushed me to itsy bitsy little pieces. You told me that I'm pashat, and now you tell me to be happy. How does it go together? First you crush me, and then suddenly you tell me be b'simcha, do a mitzvah, learn Torah, be b'simcha. How do you put these two things together?
Work on you.
Am I supposed to be happy, or am I supposed to be a broken person? Which one?
First you broke in, and then you work on yourself, and you.
So you say, well, first this and that. Alter Rebbe has a different idea. Let's look inside. Everything we're talking about, all the different details, the types of simcha that we've talked about, and none of them in any which way stop a person to consider themselves to be utterly repulsive, and to have a broken heart, and a lowly spirit. Literally at the same moment when you're feeling simcha. So
How do you do both?
we talk about having a balance. A balance, right? Not too much here, not too much there, a balance. See this in general, and our Rebbe in specific, there's no balance. Life is not about having a balance. A balance is nishtahin, nishtahar. Right?
One's an attacking the other.
A balance means that
Like bipolar in a way.
it's if this is true and this is true and you're in the middle, so you're, I was saying, a long time. So you had the people walking the sidewalks and the street went to fair. The horses went in the street, right? If you're a person, you're on this side, you're on that side. When you're in the middle, a little here, a little like that, just a fair. I don't know. The Alter says you have to be 100% b'simcha, and 100% at the same time, a leiv nishbar, a broken heart, and it's not a stira. Why is it not a stira?
Why not?
Let's look inside.
Where was it?
Ma'achar, because we're back on page 86. We're back where we are. Last word.
Oh, we get back again?
Yeah, ma'achar. First word in the line, ma'achar. You see?
4 lines before lemad hey.
What? Oh, yeah, so not.
Ma'achar, because ki yesi nivza be'ena v'chulu mitzad haguf v'nefesh habahamis. Why are you so, why do you find yourself repulsive in your own eyes? That's because you have a guf v'nefesh habahamis. Your guf v'nefesh habahamis, taka, is lowly, disgusting. That's the chamor. V'yesi b'simcha, why are you b'simcha? Mitzad nefesh halakis, because you have a neshama. So one has nothing to do with the other. In other words, think about it. If I'm a person and I'm a little good and a little bad, so then I'll be a little happy and a little sad. But I'm not a little good and a little bad. I have an nefesh habahamis that's 100%
Nefesh Elokita.
disgusting. 100 nefesh halakis, 100%. So I can be 100% b'simcha because of the nefesh halakis, and 100% with a broken heart because of my nefesh habahamis. The simcha is mitzad nefesh halakis because the nefesh halakis v'nitzitz halakus am lubish balach yesa, and the spark of Hashem which is in it to give it life kanal b'perek lamed aleph, as explained earlier in perek lamed aleph. Kahai gavna isa b'zeir, and this is taka what we learned in the Zayar. The Zayar tells us b'chiyah tkiya b'liboy misitrada. Crying is wedged in my heart from one side. The chedva and happiness tkiya b'liboy is wedged in my heart misitrada from the other side.
I could have both emotions at the same
As
time.
they state, the Zayar tells us that Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai was once teaching his son Rabbi Elazar, he's teaching him the Soides HaTorah which was behind the Kabbalah of the Churban HaBayis, the Soides HaTorah behind the Churban HaBayis HaMikdash. So at that point, Rabbi Shimon said, Rabbi Elazar says that I'm on one side of my heart, I'm crying because we're learning about the Churban Beis HaMikdash. The other side of my heart, I'm overjoyed because of the Seides HaTorah that I'm being zeicha to learn. And he felt both simultaneously, and neither one of them canceled out the other. Why? Because it's not when you have if you have one situation which is a little good and a little bad. Okay, so let's say, for example, if you give me a good piece of meat, I'm happy, right? If you give me a disgusting piece of meat, so I'm upset. Now, what if you give me a piece of meat and it's medium?
Benoni.
What?
Done.
Benoni.
It's medium. In other words, it's not it's not so great. It's not so terrible. So no, I'm not going to be very happy. I'm not going to be very sad. I'll be somewhere in the middle, right? That's a balance. But what if you give me 2 pieces of meat? And one is a great piece of meat, and one is horrible. So I'm happy you gave me this, all the way happy, and sad you gave me this. It's 2 different things. You understand? When you have one thing which is medium, so then your emotions are going to be medium. But if it's possible to have 2 contradictory emotions if they're coming from different places. So if his sadness was Churban HaBayis, the happiness was that he was Zeicha to say the Satira. So he's able to be 100% happy because of this, and 100% broken because of that. The Alter Rebbe says the same thing is also when it comes to us. You have a neshama, and because of the neshama and your ability to connect Hashem with the neshama, and the ability to learn Torah and do mitzvahs, so that causes a simcha, a meir dika simcha. On the other hand, you have a guf nefesh habahamis, which is repulsive. What does your guf want? Reuven, what does your guf want?
Tanugan.
Wants to eat, wants to drink, right?
Chumri.
And when you go to your guf and say, do what the Eibishter wants, it's like, nah, ich will nicht, right? Avda behefkeir ani chale. It's disgusting. Nefesh habahamis is egotistical and filled with character flaws, nefesh habahamis, right? And thinking about that breaks your heart. And it's not a stira to the happiness of the neshama.
We're at the beginning, so the Nefesh Habahamis and Nefesh Elokis, that was the beginning of Tanya.
But you only can experience one at a time. But you only can experience one.
That's exactly what you're saying. That we started off saying, this is the answer to V'gam Miya Bein of Karasha Yir Lavav V'Yuchal Lavid Hashem. This is the answer. This is time. The Tzemach Tzedek says, here's where we get the answer. Yeah.
And what?
Fine. There's one more point. It's not only that we can experience both of these feelings at the same time. We must experience these feelings because the simcha not only can coexist with the leiv dishbar, the only way I can experience the simcha is through the leiv dishbar. This is the deepest. This is the deeper idea.
How you explain that?
Patient.
Naturally, we identify with the nefesh habahamis. That's a naturally. So if I'm going to ask you, how are you going to pursue happiness? You go, what makes me happy? Okay. If I have a nice car and a nice house, and kina, taiva, vakavet, everything, right? Then I'll be happy. And as long as the nefesh habahamis is robust, as long as the nefesh habahamis is feeling all proud of itself, you'll never be happy. You know why? Because your nefesh habahamis is a miserable thing. You're gonna have a car. You know what?
You can't satisfy.
You know what's gonna happen? You get the nicest car. You know what you're gonna think to yourself? I'm miserable. I want a helicopter.
What's a Messiah?
You're gonna get a helicopter, and what are you gonna say?
Want a plane?
Plane.
I want a jet plane. I want a fleet of planes.
Never satisfied.
It's never satisfied.
No.
There is no one who can look in the mirror, no one in this world, and say, I've made it. I have everything I want. I've accomplished everything I want to accomplish. I've achieved everything I wanted to achieve. I've attained everything I wanted to attain. I'm exactly the way I envisioned and what I wanted. I'm happy with everything. Sisu b'nei mei sisu. There's no such thing. As the Medrash tells us, Ein adam meis v'chasi ta'avasei biyadeh. There's no person who dies having achieved even half of his taivas. So therefore, the nefesh habahamis is always miserable. It gets excited every once in a while. I got this, I got that. It's excited for 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, then it's but what don't I have? Do you know where true simcha comes from? The nefesh elokis.
What?
The nefesh elokis, the neshama is the source of true simcha. You know why? Because your neshama doesn't have an agenda. You ask the neshama, what do you want? He says, I want to connect to the Eibishter. So you tell the neshama, go to a mitzvah and connect. That's it. The neshama doesn't care what happened 2 days ago. It doesn't care what's going to happen 2 days from now. Because it doesn't have an agenda. The whole thing of an agenda, who am I and what, it doesn't have an agenda. What does the Eibishter want me to do right now? How do I connect? That's all. Simcha is the domain of the neshama. The nefesh habahamis fools us to thinking, the guf of the nefesh habahamis fool us into thinking that it can bring us simcha. It can never. How can we tap into the simcha of the neshama? When I do a mivat shalei, when I break and crush my ego, and I tell the nefesh habahamis, feh, disgusting. I'm not interested in you. I'm not interested in your way of simcha. That releases and opens up the nefesh elokis and allows us to feel simcha. The crushing of the nefesh habahamis, the breaking of the heart, and the breaking of the ego, which allows the nefesh elokis to shine, is what allows for simcha. So it's not only that we could have a broken heart together with simcha. Actually, the recipe for simcha, it comes from, where does it start from? It starts with a broken heart. It starts with humility. It starts with the crushed ego, which then allows the nefesh elokis to emerge. And when the nefesh elokis emerges, that's when we have our simcha.